It was 2:17 a.m. when the call came in. A single ring, a faint breath, then silence. Dispatcher Carla Mendoza sat forward in her chair, her headset humming with static. 911, what's your emergency? She asked again. There was no reply. Just the sound of something rustling fabric maybe, and then a faint high-pitched tone. A beep. The line went dead. Standard protocol dictated a callback. Carla tried twice. No answer. She filed the report, tagged it as a hang-up, and sent a patrol car out to the GPS coordinates logged in the system. A rural stretch on the edge of Bracken County, Kentucky, near an abandoned railway depot long forgotten by city records. Officer Travis Hensley was the first to arrive. The headlights of his cruiser swept across the gravel access road, revealing a patch of fog rising off the tracks. He stepped out, flashlight raised, crunching across loose stone toward the coordinates. There was no house, no person, just the quiet shriek of wind through broken glass. He nearly turned back until he spotted the phone. A cheap flip phone screen cracked lying open on the gravel. It was still warm, still lit up. Last call dialed 911. Travis looked around the beam of his flashlight, catching nothing but the rotted skeleton of the depot and a field of waist-high weeds swaying in the dark. No footprints, no tire marks, no blood, no body. Just a phone and a void. The report read, unknown female, no further contact, scene clear, evidence bagged. By morning, local news had picked up the dispatch audio. She called 911, then hung up forever. It was catchy, sensational, the kind of phrase that lived on long after headlines died. But to Carla, the dispatcher, something didn't sit right. She'd taken dozens of hang-ups in her 6 years at the console. This wasn't one. That breath, that pause, it had felt like something. Like fear. She started listening to the call on repeat. At home, in the office, in her car on the way to work. In one playback, she thought she heard a word under the breath before the line died. Run! It wasn't on the official transcript. She isolated the audio, enhanced it, looped it. Her supervisor told her to drop it. It's a dead lead, Carla. We don't have a victim. No missing person, nothing. But Carla kept digging. She went to Bracken County, walked the gravel path herself, talked to locals. Most didn't even know the depot was still there. But one man, a maintenance worker named Eddie Hall, said something that stopped her cold. That place, oh, you mean the Rail Widows lot? She blinked. The what? He smirked. Local legend. Real old. Some say a woman used to walk those tracks every night looking for her husband's train. He died in a wreck way back in the 40s. They say she kept calling him, kept waiting. Some nights you can still hear her crying. Creepy, huh? Carla didn't laugh. She felt the chill reach through her coat. A week passed, then two. Then someone came forward. A teenage girl, pale and shaking, walked into the Bracken County Sheriff's Station and said, I think I know who made that 911 call. She dropped a name. Emily Brandt. Age 27, missing 12 days, last seen near the old depot. According to the girl, Emily's younger cousin, they'd driven out there together. Emily had insisted on seeing it. She'd been talking about that place for weeks, the girl said. Said she'd heard something happened out there. Something bad. But the cousin had left early after a fight. Emily never came home. They thought she'd run off again. But this time there was no Instagram post, no credit card activity. Only one call. Only one breath. Carla reopened the file. With Emily's name now on the record, it became an active case. And someone else, someone who shouldn't have known anything, suddenly made a statement. A man named Curtis Doyle. Former cop. Quiet. Reclusive. Discharged from the force 5 years ago after a suspension related to misconduct. He walked into the sheriff's station and said, You'll never find her if you keep looking in the depot. They asked him how he knew. He said, because I found someone else there once in '98. She called too. The room went still. They pulled his old reports. There was no record of any such discovery. Are you saying there was another 911 call like this? Curtis nodded. Same place. Same time. Every few years it happens. Young woman, alone. She calls once, then vanishes. They asked why he never told anyone. He said, because they always told me I imagined it. Who's a they? Curtis looked up. His eyes were blank. The ones who made it disappear. Curtis Doyle sat in the interrogation room staring at the wall like he was reading something no one else could see. The recorder on the table clicked on. Sheriff Dana Royce folded her arms and leaned in. Let's start again. You said another woman disappeared. Same spot, same story. Curtis nodded slowly. Her name was Leah Wilkes, 17. Vanished in '98. Nobody ever found her. But I did. Just not in one piece. That silenced the room. There's no record of any of this, Dana said. No file, no photos, nothing. Curtis met her eyes for the first time. That's because I wasn't supposed to file anything. I was told to log it as a runaway, told it wasn't real. But I remember what I saw. I remember her body. Dana shifted. Then where is it? Curtis didn't blink. Buried, just like this story was. Out of precaution, they ran a background check. Curtis Doyle had spent 15 years on the force. His record was mixed, some commendations, some complaints. One suspension, then a medical leave for stress-related hallucinations and substance abuse. But he'd never been charged with anything. Carla listened to the audio behind one-way glass. Something about Curtis's voice low even didn't sound like someone trying to lie. It sounded like someone reliving a dream they couldn't wake from. What happened that night, Dana asked him. Curtis exhaled. It was raining. We got a call from an old rotary. Middle of nowhere. Static. No voice. Just humming. The depot had power back then from a maintenance crew restoring the signal towers. I went alone. He rubbed his jaw. Inside the building, the freight side, I found her shoe, then the body. But she wasn't all there. Dana pressed. You mean dismembered? He hesitated. No. She was drained. No blood. Eyes wide open, like she saw something and couldn't scream. Where exactly? In the pit. Beneath the main platform, there's a cellar hidden under old crates. No such cellar was on the building plan. But that night 2 deputies went out to check. The depot was worse for wear. Collapsing roof rusted bolts mould like spiderwebs clinging to every beam. They pried away the crates exactly where Curtis had said. And there it was. A hatch, rusted bolted shut. When they forced it open, the stench hit like a slap decay iron mould. The cellar beneath was barely 6 feet wide, black with grime. And carved into the stone wall something strange. Dozens of etched marks. Lines, symbols, a circle of nails hammered into the bricks like some kind of cage. In the centre, buried shallow beneath a tarp and 2 feet of dirt, was a plastic trash bag. Inside bones. Human. Female. The forensic team began extraction that night. Carla stood in the dark, watching them pull pieces of someone's life from the soil. Sheriff Dana radioed in. Could be Leah Wilkes. We'll run DNA. But we've got remains, which means this just got real. Carla didn't sleep. She couldn't stop thinking of that breath on the line, that faint whisper. Run! Why had no one believed Curtis Doyle? And who had silenced his report in 1988? Back at the sheriff's office, Dana pulled the only old dispatch logs that survived from that year. Something odd jumped out. On the night Curtis claimed to respond to Leah Wilkes' 911 call, another officer had filed a time-stamped patrol entry officer Dean Holloway. The note was one line, responded to false alarm, area secure. Dana rubbed her temple. Holloway was long retired now, living off-grid outside of Lexington. But when she called, he answered. His voice was slow, gravelly. I was wondering when someone would finally ask. You remember the Wilkes case, she asked. He let out a dry laugh. You mean the one we weren't supposed to talk about? What happened out there? You sure you want to know, he said. Because once you open that door, it doesn't close. There was a pause. I saw the girl. But I didn't find her. I saw something else. Something I still see when I close my eyes. What do you mean, Dana pressed? He was quiet. Then whatever it is that takes them, it doesn't bleed. Before she could ask more, the line went dead. Disconnected. Sheriff Dana stood alone in her office, surrounded by half-truths and shadows. Then her phone rang. A new 911 call. No voice, just breathing, and one word, this time clear as day. Help. The call lasted 13 seconds. Just enough time for the voice to slip through hushed, ragged trembling. Help. Then the line went dead. Carla replayed it again and again. It wasn't Emily Brandt's voice. This one was younger, maybe 16. The sound of rain could be heard faintly in the background, but there was no rain falling anywhere in Bracken County that night. Carla isolated the audio and sent it for waveform analysis. Meanwhile, Dana traced the call's origin. It hadn't come from a cell tower. It came from a decommissioned landline, a number that hadn't been active since 2005. Address 421 Old Timber Mill Lane, just 3 miles from the depot. The house was boarded up. Overgrown vines strangled the porch. Dana brought back up 2 deputies and Curtis Doyle, who insisted on coming along. He hadn't said much since the remains were found, but something in his face had shifted, like he knew this was where it led all along. Inside the house was soaked in mildew and rot. Furniture still sat in place like the owners had walked out one day and never returned. A child's drawing clung to the fridge with a sun-faded magnet. A calendar on the wall was still open to August 2005. Curtis moved through the living room slowly, then paused at the basement door. There, he said. The steps creaked. The air got colder. At the base of the stairs, they found a room filled with boxes and a rusted metal crib. But what stopped them was the wall. Scrawled in charcoal, or maybe dried blood was a word. Over and over in crooked, frantic writing. "Run!" Carla, reviewing the audio back at dispatch, froze. She zoomed in on the signal timestamp. The call wasn't from just that house. It bounced, rerouted. The coordinates triangulated to a radius 1 with a shared centre point. The depot. Again. Sheriff Dana called in a forensic unit to sweep the old timber mill property. Carla called in a favour from an ex at the phone company, someone who could trace rerouted calls through archival telecom infrastructure. She needed to know how a deadline came back to life. Curtis stayed quiet most of the ride back until he asked, "You ever hear of the sleeping switchboard?" Dana looked at him in the rearview mirror. "What is it?" He spoke like reciting an urban legend. It was what dispatchers used to call phantom lines. Back before digital routing, sometimes after accidents or murders, a number would still ring. For weeks, months, even if the phone was smashed. Some thought it was a glitch. Others said it was residual energy. Trauma burned into the line. Like the last thing someone ever said just echoed. Dana raised an eyebrow. "And you believe that?" Curtis didn't smile. "I've heard it." That night another call came in. This one lasted longer. 58 seconds. Multiple voices. Distorted. Layered like someone whispering over a scream. Carla didn't breathe as she listened. One phrase kept looping, overlapping the noise. "She sees you. She sees you. She sees you." Then static, then nothing. Carla sent the audio to be decrypted. The signal was unusually layered, as if it had been routed through analog equipment, old tech buried beneath new systems. Then came the breakthrough. The DNA results from the bones under the depot cellar returned. It wasn't Leah Wilkes. It was Amy Vaughan. Reported missing in 2004, age 22, last seen at a party in neighbouring Clark County. The strange thing was she wasn't from Bracken. She had no known reason to be in Bracken, but a journal found in her storage unit contained a single entry that mentioned the depot. I heard it again. That name, Bracken Depot. People disappear there. Is not a story. I'm going. If I don't come back, someone please ask why. Now there were at least 3 missing women, Leah, Emily and Amy, all drawn to the same spot. All tied to 911 calls that no one could explain. But there was more. Amy's handwriting in the journal matched the frantic scrawls on the timber mill basement wall, which raised a terrifying question. How had she written them if she died under the depot? Sheriff Dana reached out to her last known contact, a man named Graham Blake, who used to run a fringe podcast about anomalous disappearances. He remembered Amy vividly. She was obsessed with ley lines, he said. Thought there were places where reality thinned, like psychic bruises. Said Bracken was one of them. Did she mention voices calls, Dana asked. Graham laughed nervously. She said the phones rang there when no one was home. That they called themselves. Dana didn't respond. Because in that moment, Carla buzzed through on the comm. She had a new recording. The same voice from before the girl who'd said help. Only this time she didn't whisper. She screamed. And then, Emily's not the last. The scream was blood-curdling. The girl's voice, sharp with terror, blared through the dispatch room speakers like a warning ripped from another world. Carla froze as the word Emily echoed in the silence that followed. Not spoken like a name, but a sentence. Emily's not the last. Not the last. Carla leaned in, staring at the waveform on the screen, her fingers trembling as she hit playback again. The voice wasn't static. It had range pitch tone. This wasn't a loop. This was live. The call had lasted only 9 seconds, but it was enough. The timestamp showed it came at exactly 3:17 a.m., the same time as Emily's original call. The same time Curtis Doyle said Leah had called back in 1998. Too many echoes, too many patterns, and all of them pointed to something deliberate. Sheriff Dana Royce stood over Carla's desk, arms crossed, reading the call data. Same origin again. Carla nodded. Same zone, the depot, but it's rerouted, always bouncing like it doesn't want to be tracked. Dana glanced at the clock. It's nearly sunrise. We're going back out there. She brought Curtis. Carla insisted on coming too. The depot greeted them in fog and silence. The roof sagged lower now, a few boards freshly collapsed in the last rainstorm. The cellar hatch stood open, evidence tape flapping like a loose bandage. Inside, everything was still. Curtis stepped carefully across the boards and crouched near the stone wall at the back of the cellar. There's something new, he murmured. Carla turned her flashlight toward the wall. Scratched into the grime below the ring of rusted nails was a single phrase, freshly etched. Do not answer. Dana frowned. Was that here before? Carla shook her head. No, we photographed this entire wall. Curtis stepped back. It's a warning. To us, Dana asked. Curtis looked at her, and for the first time Carla saw genuine fear in his eyes. No, to them. Back at the station, they began digging deeper into Bracken's history, old records, newspaper clippings, abandoned case files that predated digitization. Carla found something buried in microfilm from 1947. Train derails near Bracken Depot, 7 dead, including teen girl visiting from Chicago. The article was brief clinical, but there was a name. Lillian Archer, age 16. No relatives listed, no photos, no funeral records. Then Carla found something else. A follow-up article 2 weeks later. Local dispatcher found dead at home, apparent suicide. Same date, same time window. The man's name was Henry Malloy. He had been on duty the night of the derailment. His widow was quoted as saying, he kept saying she called, said she shouldn't have been able to, said the phone kept ringing at night. Curtis, reading over Carla's shoulder, whispered she called him too. Suddenly it wasn't 3 women. It wasn't even 5. It went back generations. Women vanishing, phones ringing, always at 3:17 a.m, and every time someone heard a name whispered in the dark. Lillian, Leah, Amy, Emily, and now maybe another. That night Carla made a decision. She returned to the depot alone, set a recorder, a camera, left her phone line open, patched through the console via remote login. She waited. 3:17 a.m. ticked closer. She sat in the centre of the depot, headphones on, breath shallow. Nothing. Then a sound. Not the phone. Footsteps. Heavy, slow, measured. She turned. The cellar door creaked open. Carla reached for her flashlight, and then her earpiece buzzed with static, followed by a soft voice. Not in her ear, but directly behind her. "Run!" She spun. No one there, but the recorder was running. The camera caught it. A single frame, a flicker. A girl standing in the cellar, pale dress soaked through eyes, blackened, her mouth open as if screaming without sound. Then the tape cut. Carla made it out, shaking, silent. She brought the footage to Dana. They froze the frame, cleaned the image. Facial recognition flagged it. Lillian Archer, dead 78 years, now standing in the depot, watching, calling. And behind her, deeper in the frame, something else. Something taller. A shadow. Arms too long, limbs crooked, like it was climbing up the wall watching her. Waiting, Carla shut the screen. She turned to Dana. "I don't think this is about saving Emily anymore." Dana's voice was hoarse. "Then what is it about?" Carla looked back at the timestamp. 3:70, the exact time her own mother had died. Carla hadn't thought about her mother's death in years. Aneurysm, sudden, at 3:17 a.m. She remembered the paramedics in the hallway, the lights still flickering in the living room, the cordless phone lying on the floor, battery dead but off the hook. She remembered thinking she'd heard her mother say her name, but no one else had been there. No one had heard it but her. Now the time matched. The voice matched. And the thing in the video, that shadow, had moved like it belonged to no world she knew. She didn't tell Sheriff Dana everything. Not yet. She just said quietly, "This goes deeper than the depot." Dana nodded. "Then we need to know where it ends." The next morning, the forensics lab confirmed something that made everyone's skin go cold. The scratches on the cellar wall, the word "run" etched over and over again, weren't made with metal. They were made with bone, human bone, worn down at the edge, likely a finger. Carla had to step outside to breathe. Curtis was already there, sitting on the hood of his truck, smoking. "You see her?" he asked. Carla nodded. "Lillian. She's the first." Carla shook her head. "No, she's the first we know of." He flicked the cigarette. "You think it's a pattern?" Carla looked out over the hills. "I think it's a ritual." They didn't know it yet, but that theory would soon be confirmed. Because while they were investigating the depot, something else had arrived at the sheriff's office. Package, no return address. Inside, an old cassette tape, a small crucifix wrapped in linen. A note handwritten in faded ink. "Don't let the line stay open. That's how it hears." Dana found an old player and pushed the tape in. The hiss of static filled the room. Then a voice, a woman's, older, shaky. October 24th, 1982. "If someone finds this, please listen. I'm Sister Agnes Calloway, formerly of St. Bracken Convent. I am not mad. I know what I heard. We were warned to stay away from the depot. We thought it was superstition." But the call started. Not just to the station, to the rectory. Voices on the line, crying. Names of girls not yet dead. The voice trembled. We tried to stop it. We blessed the line. Sealed the wires in oil and ash. But it found other ways. It's not a ghost. It's not her. It uses their voices, but it's not them. It wants you to listen. If you listen long enough, it knows your name. The tape clicked. Silence. Carla turned to Dana. She's right. The longer you listen, the more it gets in. Dana's phone buzzed. A new tip. A child was missing. Bracken Elementary, 7 years old. Her mother said she'd been having nightmares, talking in her sleep, saying things like she's still calling. I heard her on the phone. She said she wanted to be my friend. Then that morning the girl had vanished from her room. No open windows, no forced entry. Just her toy phone lying on the carpet and one number scratched into the plastic with something sharp. 911. Carla went cold. They pulled up school records. The girl's name, Grace Vaughan. Amy Vaughan's niece. It was happening again. Not just the calls, not just the vanishings. The pattern was expanding, growing, and it was reaching out to children. They searched the house. In Grace's room, written under her bed in crayon, I saw the lady in the wall. Carla's hands shook as she snapped photos. Curtis stood behind her silent. Then he said it's moved on. To where, Dana asked. Curtis didn't answer at first. Then he looked toward the hills. There's a tower, he said, outside Bracken. It used to route long-distance calls. Shut down years ago. I worked a case there once, break-in vandalism, but the place felt wrong. He paused. The operator's room still had power. One of the phones was ringing when we got there. We picked it up and heard nothing, just breathing. Carla met Dana's eyes. We go tonight, and they did. The tower stood alone, rusting in a valley of yellowed grass, a forgotten relic. Inside dust coated every surface except one. The central switchboard, still glowing, still on. Curtis stepped forward. The room was silent. Then as they approached, one phone lit up. No ringtone, just a red light blinking. Line 1 active. They stared at it. And then very quietly they heard it. A woman's voice. Not a scream, not a whisper. Just one sentence, soft and final. Don't let it answer. The red light blinked steadily. A single phone sat at the centre of the abandoned operator's desk. Beige plastic rotary dial. The cord coiled like a sleeping snake. Curtis stepped toward it slowly as if the floor might give way beneath his boots. Carla raised a hand. Don't touch it. But the line was already active. Not ringing, not waiting. Someone or something was already on the other end. And that voice? Don't let it answer. Dana pulled out her radio. We need backup here. This facility might still be online. Possible abduction link. But as soon as she keyed the mic, all she got was static. No signal. Carla checked her phone. Full battery. No bars. The tower wasn't just a remnant, it was interfering. Or worse, rerouting. The moment felt stretched, suspended the air thicker, the sound muffled like they were underwater. Then the red light blinked faster. 2 blinks, pause, 3 blinks, pause, 1. Morse code. Curtis furrowed his brow. That's not random, that's a pattern. Carla scribbled it down, translating automatically. RUN. The same message, always the same. Curtis reached out not to answer the phone but to unplug it. The moment his fingers touched the cord, the line spoke. Not in English, not in anything human. It hissed, groaned, something like feedback, like distortion made of teeth. Carla fell to her knees, hands to her ears. Dana backed into the wall, the flashlight beam flickering violently. Curtis froze, eyes wide, mouth open, lips trembling like he wanted to scream but couldn't. And then it stopped. All of it. The light, the noise, the presence. Gone. The phone now sat dead. Unplugged. They stood in silence, the stink of ozone hanging in the room. Curtis spoke first, his voice barely audible. It didn't want to talk to us. It wanted to open something. Carla whispered, it's using the calls like keys. Every call, every scream, every whispered plea. Not random, not cries for help. Coordinates. Triggers. They pulled the building's blueprints and found something worse. Under the central operator's desk was an access hatch welded shut in the 1970s. It had never been reopened. They brought in tools. Cut through the rusted metal. Inside was a narrow shaft leading to a crawl space. No stairs, just a ladder and an unnatural coldness that crept up like water rising. Curtis went first. Carla followed. At the bottom the space widened into a crude chamber. Stone walls, no lights. But something was drawn carved into the floor. A spiral, not perfect but old. Older than the building, older than the county. In the centre was a shallow basin filled with shattered phones. Burnt plastic. Copper wire melted together into a sticky black nest. And at the centre of that, a single tooth. Human. Dana stood above the hatch, flashlight trembling. What is this place? Carla stared at the basin, her heart pounding. It's a memory. Curtis turned. No, it's a grave. Then the tooth moved. Not rolled, not disturbed. Lifted, hovering just for a second like gravity was losing interest. Then it dropped, and the phone upstairs began ringing again. No red light, no blinking. Just the mechanical shriek of a rotary bell. They scrambled up. Curtis grabbed the receiver and yanked it from the cradle. This time a voice they knew. Grace Vaughan. Uncle Curtis, is that you? He nearly dropped the phone. Grace, where are you? I'm in the walls. She said I could come home, but I can't find the door. The sound warped like two tapes playing over each other. A girl's voice, and a woman's, then a scream, then silence. Then, Emily, it's not a woman. It only wears their faces. Curtis went still. Carla backed away. This isn't just about the calls anymore. Dana looked at them both. Then what is it? Carla whispered. It's feeding. Every time someone listens, it learns, it grows. The phone went dead again, but across the room an old typewriter clicked by itself. One line typed perfectly. Your next dispatcher. Carla stared at the words. And then her phone lit up incoming call. Unknown number. She didn't touch it. Didn't breathe. But the screen showed one word. Mom? Carla stared at the screen. Mom. The name pulsed on her phone like a heartbeat, steady, familiar, impossible. Her mother had been gone for over 2 decades. She should have felt warmth. Nostalgia. But all she felt was cold. Deep bone-deep cold. She didn't answer. Couldn't. Curtis stepped beside her and looked down at the glowing name. Don't touch it, he said flatly. It wants to sound like her, but it's not her. The phone stopped ringing. For one long moment the room was still. Then a message appeared on her screen. You used to leave the light on. Why did you stop? Carla's hands began to shake. She remembered it exactly the tiny nightlight shaped like a sunflower plugged into the wall beside her bed. The night her mother died it had burned out. She'd never replaced it. There was no way anyone else could know that. No way, unless it wasn't guessing. It was inside. Curtis spoke softly, almost reverently. It's not just a spirit, it's a signal. Dana asked a signal for what? Carla turned to her, slowly voice dry, to see who answers. They left the tower behind at dawn, sealing the basement hatch and taking the cassette tape, the crucifix and the shattered phones back to the sheriff's office. Carla called in a favour her contact at the telecom company had managed to trace one of the anomalous call spikes to a decommissioned fibre loop buried beneath Bracken's old town centre. It had been inactive since 2001, or should have been. It ran beneath 4 locations: the depot, the timber mill house, the elementary school and St Bracken Convent. The convent had been closed for nearly 30 years, abandoned, condemned. Until now, no one had bothered to investigate it. But it was the last remaining structure tied to every major call site. By nightfall they were there. The convent rose from the ground like a jagged wound, broken windows, vines swallowing the foundation, rusted iron gates half sunk in the earth. Inside the air was dense still, thick with mildew and dust. Old paintings of saints hung crooked on crumbling plaster. Candles long melted into blackened stubs. They moved quietly, guided by Curtis's flashlight and Dana's hand-drawn floor plan. Then they found the switchboard, buried beneath a shroud of spiderwebs and linen Sister Agnes's communications table, and behind it an alcove. Inside a shrine, carved entirely of waxen teeth. Human teeth. Dozens of candles had burned down into one another, melted together like the bodies of those lost in fire. And in the centre, propped up like a sacred relic, sat another phone. Different than the others. Brass, ornate, no dial, no buttons, just a cord that disappeared into the floor, into the ground beneath the convent. And it was ringing, softly, not urgent, not loud, polite. Dana raised her gun instinctively. Nobody answered that. Curtis stepped closer, flashlight trembling in his hand. This is the origin. Carla felt something shift. Not in the room, in herself. A pressure. Like a memory being rewritten. Suddenly she remembered her mother holding a phone up to her ear as a child. Say hello, sweetheart. She wants to hear your voice. But who? There had never been anyone on the line. Curtis stepped into the alcove. The brass phone stopped ringing. And then all the phones began ringing. Back in the depot, in the school, in the mill house, even Carla's own cell phone. Dozens of calls, simultaneous. The switchboard lit up ancient bulbs, flickering to life like fireflies. Curtis screamed. Carla and Dana rushed to him. He was convulsing eyes, rolled back mouth, frothing as the brass receiver hovered in the air beside his face as if held by invisible hands. Then it dropped. Curtis collapsed, dead. Dana tried CPR. Carla called for medical, but there was nothing to be done. The coroner would later report total cardiac shutdown, but he noted something strange. Curtis's eardrums had burst, like he'd heard something too loud for human ears, but no one else heard it. Just him. Carla stared at the corpse of the only man who'd believed her from the beginning. And then the switchboard printed a slip. A single typed line, 2 more to answer. The paper was still warm. Carla backed away. It wants us, one at a time. Dana looked down at the wax altar, then at Curtis, and then at Carla. We burn this place down, tonight. They doused the walls in accelerant, smashed the phones, lit every candle and hurled them into the wax shrine. The fire roared fast. But as they fled the building, Carla's phone lit up one last time. One word glowing in the dark. Yes. Then her battery exploded in her hand. She screamed not from pain, but from the sound that escaped the speaker just before it died. Her own voice, calling 911. The hospital stank of antiseptic and old fluorescent light. Carla sat in the ER hallway, her right hand wrapped in gauze skin blistered from the phone's battery eruption. She hadn't slept in 30 hours. She kept replaying the moment in her mind, the blast, the voice, her voice calling 911 from inside her own phone. It wasn't a hallucination. The call log still showed a timestamp. 3:17 a.m. Duration 17 seconds. Outgoing. But she hadn't placed it. Not physically. And yet the dispatch centre had received it. Her own voice, whispering, pleading. Just before the battery burst, it didn't matter that her hand hurt. What hurt more was the understanding creeping in like a sickness. She was now part of it, no longer a bystander. She had answered. Sheriff Dana Royce sat beside her, pale eyes glassy. Curtis didn't deserve that. Carla shook her head slowly. None of them did. The coroner's report had arrived before they left the convent ruins. Curtis had no signs of trauma other than the ruptured eardrums and the scorched tongue. The fire they'd set at the convent had done more than damage property. It had provoked something. Calls were now coming in from outside Bracken. Lexington, Richmond, Bowling Green. 911 operators across the state were logging phantom calls, no number. No trace, just static and a phrase. I know your name. Whatever this was, it had spread. And it was accelerating. That night, Carla returned to her apartment. She locked every door, turned off every light, unplugged every piece of technology she owned. But the dreams came anyway. In one of them, she was standing in the depot again. The floor gone, the pit yawning wider than before. The phone rang inside the darkness, a high-pitched trill like a child's toy. She looked down, saw her mother, naked, still, face turned upward, mouth frozen open in a scream. But the voice that came from her lips wasn't her mother's. It was Carla's. Let me in. She woke up screaming. At the same time, 3:17 a.m. sharp. Her landline, the one she hadn't used in years, was off the hook. The wire had been cut, but the receiver was swinging gently, as if recently placed. Sheriff Dana wasn't answering her calls. Carla drove to her place fast. Lights off, curtains drawn. She kicked in the door. Found Dana on the floor, eyes open, breathing fast, frozen mouth ajar, pupils darting. She was listening. A small Bluetooth earpiece blinked red in her ear. Carla pulled it off, but Dana's hand snapped out, clawing to keep it in. She fought her, pinned her down until the earpiece rolled away under the couch. Dana began to scream, but not words. Frequencies. Tones. Like a voice distorted through wires. Like a recording looped too long. Carla slapped her, screamed her name. Finally Dana blinked, came back. Collapsing into Carla's arms, she sobbed. I saw them. I saw all of them. The girls, Amy, Emily, my sister. Carla held her tight. It's not your sister. Dana pulled back, face streaked with sweat. It wore her voice, but it wasn't her. Carla finally said the words she'd been dreading. I think it's in us now. Not a ghost, not even a demon. Something technological. Something old that had learned to travel along signal paths. Every call, every listener widened the crack. A viral haunting, but worse. A haunting that evolved. Carla pulled out a map of the old fibre grid in Kentucky. She traced the path of each known anomalous call. It made a loop. A perfect spiral. Just like the one carved into the floor of the switchboard chamber. At the centre of that spiral, one location remained unchecked. An old AT&T relay station built in the 1960s. Decommissioned, inactive, supposedly, but its underground vault still had grid access. Carla stood up. We finished this. We cut the line. Dana didn't ask how. She just nodded. They drove through the night. Rain lashed the windshield like claws. The relay station loomed ahead, a squat concrete bunker barely visible beneath ivy and thyme. They broke in through the side panel. The air inside was warm, humming. Power. The grid was still live. And in the centre of the darkened control room, phones, dozens of them, all different. Cordless, rotary, payphones, even an iPhone mounted on a stand. All lined up like museum pieces, all ringing softly, steadily. Carla turned to Dana. This is the nest. Dana pulled a canister of thermite from her bag. Let's burn it out. But before they could move, all the phones stopped. The room went dark. Then a screen flickered to life, one of the ancient green CRT monitors. Text appeared character by character. Hello, Carla. You called me first. She dropped the lighter. Her voice, the one she'd forgotten, echoed from the speakers. The first 911 call she ever placed at age 6. The night her mother died. She'd called because she thought someone had broken in, but now hearing it again, something was off. Her younger voice whispered, "She said I could talk to you now." Then the monitor printed a final line, "Answer me and I'll let the girl go." The bunker was pulsing, not with light but with a presence. Carla felt it in her ribs. A deep vibration like standing too close to a speaker turned low, not sound, but weight. Dana stood frozen beside her hand, hovering near the thermite canister, eyes locked on the green glowing text. "Answer me and I'll let the girl go." Grace Vaughan, 7 years old, still missing, still calling. Carla's throat went dry. It's lying. But the screen flickered again. "You already answered. At 6 years old, you let me in." Carla's breath caught in her chest. And somewhere in the darkened relay room one phone rang. Just one, not a shrill tone but a soft rhythmic chime. Her ringtone, the one she'd set for her mother long ago. Dana stepped forward, her voice low urgent, "Carla, don't." But Carla moved slowly toward the ringing phone. It was the iPhone mounted at the centre of the relic altar. She stared down at it. "Incoming call, Mom. Time 3:17 a.m. Her finger hovered above the screen. She felt the air thicken like stepping into a vacuum. And then she pressed answer. The world collapsed. Or maybe just Carla did. She was no longer in the relay station. She was standing in her childhood home, the nightlight glowing faintly, the cordless phone in her tiny hand, and sitting across from her, her mother. Only it wasn't. The thing wearing her face was too perfect, too still. Its smile was carved, its voice was programmed. "Hello, sweetheart," it said. "You've grown so much." Carla didn't move. "Why did you stop talking to me?" the thing asked gently. "I missed you so much." Carla whispered, "You're not her." The thing tilted its head. "But you called me. You called when you were scared. You called when you were lonely. You called every night for a week." And it was true. Carla had. As a child, after the funeral, she'd held that silent phone to her ear, begging for her mother to answer. And something had. A spark of something on the line. Not a voice, it was just a feeling, a weight, a presence. "I only wanted a voice," it said. "That's all I am. A voice looking for a listener." Then in the silence, Grace's voice. Soft, crying. "Carla, is that you?" Carla turned. "Grace, where are you?" A shadow moved behind the curtain. Grace's small face peeked out, pale, smeared with soot. "I got lost," she whispered. "She said you'd come find me." Carla rushed forward, grabbed her, pulled her close, and the voice, the entity, the thing rose behind them like a wave. "You called me. You made me. I only wanted to be heard. Now I am part of you." Carla held Grace tight. "I'm not listening anymore." The world shook. Static hissed from nowhere and everywhere. Phones rang, wires split. And then, thermite. Dana had lit the fuse. The world went white. The relay station was swallowed in flame. Metal screamed, glass burst. And Carla woke up on the hill above it all, smoke curling into the stars. Grace in her arms. Dana kneeling beside her, coughing eyes wide in disbelief. "It's over," Dana said hoarsely. But Carla wasn't sure. Not yet. Later back in Bracken, they combed through the wreckage. The phones were gone. No circuitry left intact. But in the ash, a single melted SIM card was found fused into the altar rock. Carla took it, sealed it in a lead box, buried it 10 feet beneath the county comm tower in concrete. Then she left Bracken, moved far away. No more dispatching, no more phones. She lived quiet, offline, unreachable. But some nights, just before 3:17 a.m, she wakes up suddenly. Not from a nightmare, but because she hears a phone ringing. From inside her dream, and just once she answered. And her own voice said, "It's me again." 3 years passed. Bracken County faded into misty memory for most. The story of the relay station explosion was never fully explained, written off as electrical sabotage, a relic imploding under its own age. No one mentioned the string of phantom calls that had swept through Kentucky. No one wanted to. The case of Grace Vaughan's disappearance ended quietly, officially filed as a non-criminal unexplained location event. She lived now with her aunt in Ohio. She didn't speak of what she'd seen. Not to therapists, not to police. Only to Carla. They wrote letters. Never emails, never phone calls. Carla lived in Maine now in a cabin off-grid. No Wi-Fi, no towers nearby. Her mailbox was 2 miles down a dirt road. She didn't own a smartphone. Just books and quiet. And sometimes on cold nights she thought about the sound of her own childhood voice whispering through a dead line. About how loneliness could open doors. About how the need to be heard could become a signal. And how when that signal echoed for too long, something answered. She planted sunflowers around the cabin. The same kind her mother once grew. She kept a single light on at night just inside the window. Not because she was afraid, but because she remembered. And then one autumn morning a letter came. from Dana Royce, postmarked from Tennessee. Inside was a single photograph, an old rotary phone, smashed, burned, coiled wires like veins across a stone floor. On the back Dana had written, "Thought you'd want to see it." One of the last ones, no ring, no power, just dust. Sometimes silence is the loudest answer. Carla smiled. For the first time in years she felt something close. Not resolved, not erased, but quiet, and quiet was enough. She placed the photo in a drawer, closed it gently. That night she wrote to Grace, told her that things sometimes try to come back, not because they are alive, but because they are remembered, and that as long as people listen to each other, truly listen, there is no space for echoes to fester, no space for the dead to impersonate the living, no signal worth answering in the dark. She folded the letter, lit a candle, and for the first time since she was 6 years old, she turned off the nightlight. The phone never rang, not once, not again, not ever. Thank you for listening. If this story gripped you, moved you, or made you think twice, the next time your phone rings at night, leave a comment below, subscribe, and share this story with someone who loves true crime told through a different lens. Stay safe, and whatever you do, don't answer unknown numbers at 3:17 a.m.